So whilst I'm in hospital, I thought it would be a good time, whilst I have nothing better to do, to sit down, have a chat with you guys about exactly what is going on in my life and what has led me to be in the position that I'm in now. So I am a nearly 31-year-old cystic fibrosis patient, warrior, fighter, whatever you want to use. I had a child in 2014. He is now 9 years old. I always get asked how was my pregnancy, and my pregnancy was pretty smooth sailing for somebody with cystic fibrosis. Let's just say there were no real issues and there were no worries, and I flew through it up until the last couple of weeks, if I'm completely honest with you. So when people say, how bad was it, how tumultuous was it, it really wasn't. I felt the healthiest I have ever felt. When I was pregnant, however, I did get Pseudomonas growing on my lungs at the very end point. So I did have to start IVs, and I did deliver early. Skip forward to now because there's a lot to cover in between, and to be honest, not all of it even involves my health, just your standard normal people problems. That's not really of interest to this channel. However, I can talk about the last 5 years where things have ramped up a little bit and things have changed. At the end of 2019, I was probably the sickest I have ever been, to the point I was in over Christmas, over New Year, all the way through until gone Valentine's Day that next year. I just could not get rid of whatever infection I was growing. My sputum samples at that time were coming back normal as far as I was aware. A few months later, I was actually told that I was growing Burkholderia cepacia around that time, and it didn't flag up on the system. Now, anyone who knows how dangerous Burkholderia cepacia is knows that that could have been fatal, because they weren't treating me with Burkholderia standard IVs. They were just treating the Pseudomonas and the staph at the time. It wasn't. Somehow I managed to get rid of it, even though we weren't actively treating it. How I came out of that alive, I do not know, but I did. Weirdly enough, during that time, I would have contracted tuberculosis, which is the tuberculosis that stopped being dormant in 2022 and actually became active. I had that at the same time as Burkholderia, and thank my lucky stars, it didn't become active instantly with the Burkholderia, because I genuinely don't think I'd be here today to tell the story. So the past 5 years have been far more rockier than my childhood and my teenage years. I did do fairly normal stuff as a teenager. Parenthood was okay, like I said, standard life issues. My hospital visits ramped up a lot more in the last 5 years, where they have become more frequent. I used to go a couple of years, sometimes 3 years without IVs. It got to the point where I was going in every 3 to 6 months, and now it's at the point where I'm in every 4 to 6 weeks. What we believe has caused my decline is when the TB became active, although it didn't affect my body massively, it didn't damage my lungs, if at all, I ended up on medication for the tuberculosis called rifampicin. It lowered my immune system, and we believe that rifampicin just stripped my body bare. But obviously, if you don't treat TB, it does become very nasty, so I didn't really have a choice. In that time, I did develop gastroparesis, which is partial or full paralysis of the stomach, which later led on to slow colon transit, slow bowel motility, and basically all-round intestinal dysmotility, and we're just trying to stop it getting to the point where it is intestinal failure. Since having gastroparesis, my nutrition has gone to almost nothing. I absolutely love food. I've been a foodie my whole life. Me being me, a massive foodie, I still take those risks. I know the consequences, and I still eat the things I shouldn't eat. And I still massively enjoy food and will spend money on food regardless of the fact I know it's wasted. Because in my mind, as long as I got to taste it and experience it, it's not wasted. This will not cause any further damage to my stomach. It actually would kind of keep trying to wake it up, rather than it just laying there doing nothing. So me eating is not further aiding these issues into getting worse. I am a tube-fed foodie. It's by far been the most difficult time of my life. The last 20 months has been incredibly rocky, and not in a my lungs are massively failing kind of sense. It's more of a, if I continue this decline that I am on, we're not looking at a great deal of time, unfortunately. That's why we're discussing lung transplants, second opinions at different hospitals, and new interventions with my medication and treatment. I'm looking at starting NIV therapy. I have an oxygen concentrator, which I use for out and about and exercising, etc., to help with my breathlessness. I have changed some medications, started some new ones, and I also recently was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis related diabetes, which is type 1 and type 2 mixed together, so it's very difficult to control. Because I don't eat a lot at the moment, particularly during this hospital admission, I've some days eaten absolutely nothing. The days I have eaten, I've thrown up. My lung functions the last time I did them were between 33 and 40, so I did best of 3. 2 of them were in the low 30s, 30 and 33. The best was 39 and 40. We go with the best every time, obviously. I know this isn't a tragic lung function, but considering what it was before all of this happened, which was 80s, 90s, it's a huge drop in, I'd say 18 months that drop has happened. And my quality of life has massively suffered. But also inside of all of this, I need to express how, despite going through what I'm going through and how scary it's been, I'm also still very lucky to have the love and support that I do around me, and I've visited some incredible places in the world. I'm ticking off things on my bucket list. I've been to places I never thought I'd go. I am actually very lucky despite being incredibly unlucky, and the people that I'm in this shit show with are the best of human beings, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And that makes all the difference. I know it sounds hippified, but mental health, having your mental strength and having the motivation, the courage, the strength, it really does get you through. I'm very lucky that my body compensates the way it does, however, because there have been times when I really did think that it was curtains, but my body has just pulled me back every time. Over the last 18 months, I have lost 10 kilograms. I have managed to grab back 4, which is great. But for me, my head is, well, it's not 10, is it? So I keep pushing for 10 rather than seeing the increase of 4 kilograms being a real big achievement. I'm like, well, I need more. Keep going, let's do more. Not having that weight on me has made a significant difference to my life in terms of strength, muscle mass, and what I can do in a day and how strong my lungs are, and they are not strong anymore. I can't even blow up a balloon anymore. I can't whistle very well. I can't do anything that exerts my breath. If it gets too much, I just put my supplemental oxygen on, and that kind of brings me back a bit quicker. Moving forward with what's going on at the moment and dealing with my gastro issues, we don't actually have a lot of options. TPN is a very last minute death's door kind of option, and I really don't want to be at that point. But that's sort of when there are no other options, when I can't even tolerate food, if intestinal failure happens. So I am on jejunal feeds and I drain through my stomach, but I can't even tolerate my full jejunal feeds anymore. I do 25 mils over 20 hours, so I don't even get a full 500 mils anymore. But for a cystic fibrosis patient, we need 3.5k calories to keep our bodies at a good strength for recovery and fighting infection. In the last 18 months, I've gone from being on about 5 to 10 medications that swap and change to 30 plus medications, and more being added every other week. So there has been so many changes in such a short space of time, and that's why we're sort of at the point of being palliative and lung transplant talks and talking about my prognosis in a much different light. As I said, if I continue on this trend, it's not going to go well. But the amount of hope and positivity I try to instill in my life, I genuinely hope will get me somewhere. If you see this video before you see my Kaftrio video, as I know a lot of people wonder why I'm not on it, I have done a whole video regarding Kaftrio. A lot of people on social media say, why don't you just get a lung transplant? As if it's a really easy thing to do. And I thought I'd take the time whilst I'm making this video to reiterate a lung transplant is by far a cure for CF. Lung transplant can be a cure for other people with lung diseases, but due to the fact cystic fibrosis is genetic and it's in our genes, it's in our DNA, there is no cure for it. There is only treatment, and a lung transplant comes with so many other risks, like massive risks. More future transplants, chronic lung rejection, of unfortunately passing away on the operating table or hours after. I unfortunately know people who have had heart failure, strokes, chronic rejection within weeks, and people who are now on the lung transplant list again, or people who are on transplant lists for other organs because the medication to help lung rejection actually damages the kidneys, and it has to be carefully considered, and the criteria is very strict. You have to prove that you will be able to sustain your life 5 years post-transplant before they would consider you. In my situation, unfortunately, I can't guarantee that I would make it 5 years post-transplant, which makes me an unlikely candidate. However, we are trying regardless. But gastro issues are one massive obstacle when it comes to the lung transplant process. So I hope I've covered a few bases in this video, and obviously, you know, I'm around for a while, not going anywhere yet. So I will be making more informative videos about my situation, and of course the hospital vlogs and vlogs when I'm home, and hopefully some positive vlogs of me doing some amazing things. That's something I also want to share with you guys, is that despite the situation I'm in, I can still go out and have an amazing time and an amazing life. I don't want to just sit here rotting. So thank you for watching my video. If you could do me a massive favour and like this video, leave a comment if you have any questions or are in a similar situation, and also subscribe to my channel if you have found this video interesting. I'd really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a lovely week ahead. Bye.